Yes, Navtej Johar 51. Navtej Johar case. Navtej Johar case. Homosexual rights. Homosexual, but particularly on the homosexual rights, section 377, it criminalizes, it actually criminalized homosexual relationships, but after Navtej Johar case, it has been decriminalized. That is what Navtej Johar case is. 52, LISIS. LISUS, LISIS.
Tribes.
They are a tribe, Arunachal based tribe. They are also called as Yobin, YOBIN. They are also called as Yobin and Arunachal Pradesh based tribes. So there are a lot of controversies surrounding the existence of these tribes also. Some claim that they migrated from outside to Arunachal Pradesh and now they have situated in the forest of Arunachal Pradesh. This is one major controversy that surrounds this particular LISIS tribe. Their origin is not, a lot of people are arguing that they were not originated here in India, in Arunachal Pradesh. 53, 30-meter telescope. 30-meter telescope. 30-meter telescope is today, it is being situated in the United States. Hawaii, Mauna Kea. In Mauna Kea, Hawaii, it is being situated as a 30-meter telescope. 30-meter telescope is funded by a lot of countries such as Japan, USA, India, Canada, China. All these countries have been funding. And the major region, the major spectrum in which the telescope study is infrared, mid-infrared and near ultraviolet, and also studies in the visible spectrum also. We all know that there are different spectrums in the light. We have infrared, we have ultraviolet, near, far, visible. If you look at one particular spectrum, you can only see it partially. Humans can perceive visible light. Some organisms like butterflies, they can perceive ultraviolet. Some animals like fishes, they can see through infrared. The spectrum that you look light through, it alters your perspective of how you see things. Because for example, let us take any galaxy you take. When you study it in a visible light, something you will see only the cloud of that particular galaxy. But when you look at it in the infrared spectrum, you look at the stars in the galaxy also. Look at the stars in the galaxy because that is how infrared works. That is how the different spectrums work. Yes, and mostly all these infrared telescopes and all, they'll be situated in the atmosphere. 54. Question number 54. Which of the following constitutional amendments require the ratification of states? So anything that affects the federal provisions or the federal concepts of the constitution requires the ratification by states, as we have discussed earlier. So first, the distribution of executive power, yes, it affects the federal provisions, union and state. Yes, first it requires the ratification. Next is regarding president. President is someone who represents the entire India, not only the government of India, he represents entire India. So he is one position whose elections has to be done by all the states also. So any matter related to the elections of president requires ratification of states. And obviously 7th schedule, federal list, union list, state list and concurrent list. All these three things. 4th, it talks about Schedule 6. Schedule 6 central government can do. Schedule 6 the central governments can do. Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. So 1, 2 and 3 requires the ratification of states. And moreover, Schedule 6 is only for 4 states. It does not require the ratification of all the states. Only the central government will do the necessary changes to Schedule 6. Breakbone fever. So, breakbone fever, 55, breakbone fever. Dengue or dengue. Breakbone fever is nothing but dengue. Dengue, mosquito bite, hemorrhagic fever. And one of the highest forms of dengue is DHF, dengue hemorrhagic fever. So yes, it has a hemorrhagic tendency. It is not completely hemorrhagic, but dengue itself is fatal. But an extreme form of dengue is DHF, that is dengue hemorrhagic fever. Hemorrhagic is something related to bleeding. Both A and B, internal. C, both A and B. C, both A and B. 56, account aggregator. Account aggregator. One only, B one only, B one only. Account aggregator is nothing but an entity where people submit their financial records. Companies, organizations submit their financial records, and yes, it is being recently it was brought and is regulated by RBI. It cannot read the data that you submit to the entity, and not only banks and NBFCs, but mutual funds, insurance repositories, pension fund repositories, all other funds also are data fiduciaries there, financial information providers there. Not data fiduciaries, but financial information producers. And this account aggregator is data blind, meaning that it cannot read the data that you give it, that you feed into the system. 57, who was chosen as the provisional president of the Constituent Assembly? Dr. Sachinandana Sinha. Initially, pro tem speaker, he was selected. We used to select the pro tem speaker, right? So, Andamari on the Sachinandana was selected, then only Rajendra Prasad took over the Constituent Assembly as the regular president. India ranks first in facing the highest risk of misinformation and disinformation in the world, said the Global Risks Report 2024. The Global Risk Report was released by World Economic Forum. World Economic Forum. Most of the time, not telling 100% of the time, but most of the time, when global comes in a particular report, at least 80 to 90% of the time, World Economic Forum releases it. So, World Economic Forum, Global Risk Report, World Economic Forum. 59, Article 324, which of the following is correct? Yes, is correct. Election Commission shall consist of a Chief Election Commissioner and such members of the Election Commission. Parliament may from time to time fix. President from time to time fix. The first statement is incorrect. By cancellation, we get 2 and 3 as the answer. Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners have equal powers and receive equal salaries allowances, similar to that of the Judge of Supreme Court. Yes, they are talking about Article 324 and not the recent changes. Election Commission has the power to direct, control and conduct elections to all parliament, to the legislature of every state, and the elections of offices to the president and vice president held under the constitution. Yes. Both statements 2 and 3 are correct. Option A, 2 and 3. 60, First Movers Coalition. First Movers Coalition. First Movers Coalition is nothing but a grouping that was brought by the World Economic Forum. It was initially launched in COP 26. In COP 28 also, a few discussions upon the First Movers Coalition was done, and that is the reason why FMC was in the news. Now, what does this First Movers Coalition try to do? It tries to decarbonize heavy emitting sectors such as aviation, aluminium, steel, shipping, trucking. So there are few sectors that carbonize a lot, whose carbon footprint is very much high. So the major premise of this particular coalition is to decarbonize such sectors, such heavy emitting sectors. So it's not to reduce poverty, but it was launched by World Economic Forum. That is, we have to give them, only one is true. Only one is true. 16, Government of India Act 1919. Being law. Only 2 is incorrect. Actually, only 1 is incorrect.
Only 1 is.
No, there was no universal adult franchise, right? universal adult franchise-ன்றது வந்து நமக்கு கிடையவே கிடையாது இல்லையா? After unless and until after this thing, after the constitution came into existence, would not have universal adult franchise. Yes, only. Women got their voting rights. Yes, women got their voting rights, but that does not mean it was universal. Only a few individuals who were economically on a higher note, who were in the upper echelons of the economy, they were able to vote. Not everyone. 62. If a constraint from a supply chain economy, then demand pull inflation is seen. Due to increase in indirect taxes in an economy, cost push inflation can be witnessed. So demand pull inflation is something that increases when the aggregate demand increases. It's not something to do with supply side. Even if the supply is the same, 10 units are supplied, that meets the 10 units that are demanded. There is no inflation. That formally it works. But when the same 10 units are supplied and the demand has increased to 20 units, this is where demand pull inflation comes. So the supply is irrelevant here. Irrespective of supply, demand, if it increases, demand pull inflation. Demand will be pulling the inflation. Demand will be pulling the inflation. Let us say this particular product costs ₹1. Now I will be willing to pay ₹2 to get this product. So irrespective of the supply, the demand increases, the aggregate demand in the economy increases, we will witness demand pull inflation. So first statement is incorrect. And indirect taxes, when they increase, the cost of products will increase. That is cost push inflation. Only 2 is true. Only 2 is true. 63. Ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide. So there was a recent controversy between India and Singapore regarding the Everest masalas. Everest tikala, all these masalas are right. So these masalas had large quantities of ethylene oxide. That was the acquisition by the Singaporean government, Singaporean authorities. And that is the context in which the ethylene oxide was in use. And ethylene oxide it has been used in various components. Now it has been used as fumigants. It has been used in production of PET bottles. PET bottles in the sense it's also being used in the production of polyesters. It's also used as antifreeze. There are a lot of other uses for, it is also used in detergents. Other uses for ethylene oxide also. So 1 to yes, fumigate agricultural products, plastic bottle production, yes, PET bottle productions used in antifreeze and also to make polyesters. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. In all these areas, ethylene oxide is being used. Detergents, yes. It also witnessed, it can also be seen in tobacco smoke. It can also be seen in tobacco smoke. 64. Tobacco smoke. 64. Israel-Palestine, obviously Israel-Palestine conflict, 2-state solution. 65. Chief Information Commissioner appointed by the President on the recommendation of which of the following committees? B. D. Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and Union Cabinet Minister nominated by the Prime Minister. 66. President and? இல்லைங்க, ஒன்றில் வந்து பார்லிமெண்ட் டிசைட்ஸ் இது சுப்ரீம் கோர்ட்டில், ஹை கோர்ட்டில் பிரசிடென்ட் டிசைட்ஸ். ஓகேங்களா? Parliament and President, High Courts, Supreme Court and High Courts respectively. So option B for question number 66. 67. Tighter monetary policy involves which of the following? Tighter monetary policies. All three. Tighter monetary policy means it increases savings. Yes, obviously the banks will offer large interest rates and people will want to save rather than invest. So one is witness. Selling of long-dated government bonds by the RBI. RBI, it sells long-dated government bonds in order to absorb the excess liquidity in the market. So that is another thing. But depreciation of exchange rate, does it happen? When there is very much less money supply within the economy, people will not go for imports. And when they don't go for imports, the demand for foreign currency will not be there. When there is no demand for foreign currency, there will be no depreciation of our currency. We all know that demand for a currency appreciates it, and the opposite currency, that particular currency of that country where the demand for a foreign country is high, will depreciate. In times of tighter monetary policies, the individuals themselves will not have money. They cannot even buy, this is an exaggerated statement only, but yes, they cannot even buy domestic goods rather than imported goods. So in this case, depreciation of exchange rate will not happen. Only B, 1 and 2 only. 1 and 2 only is correct. 1 and 2 only is correct. 68. Central government buys long-term securities from its member banks. It's also known as quantitative easing. Quantitative easing. So quantitative easing is also like a monetary policy mari. Like people, banks on their like securities sell money, they will they'll buy securities, right? Yes, they buy securities in order to infuse liquidity into the market. Infuse liquidity in the market. So that is what quantitative easing is. 69. Higher wages and higher oil price leads to which of the following inflation? Cost push. Cost push inflation. The cost is getting high. The cost is pushing the inflation. The cost is pushing the inflation. Cost of production increases. Cost push inflation. Yes. Bose-Einstein condensate. 70. Bose-Einstein condensate. Bose-Einstein condensate is something that is very important even for mains also, because we have this in GS3, we have this topic, scientific advancements and contributions by Indians. In that, Satyendranath Bose is one major player. We also the one who discovered bosons. The one after whom this particular boson, this particle of bosons is named, and the Higgs boson particle is also named after him, and Peter Higgs, obviously. Yes, Bose-Einstein condensate. Yes, we all know that there are basically 3 states of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. And if you dig deep, you also find plasma as another state of matter. And when you dig deeper, there is this 5th state of matter known as the Bose-Einstein condensate. This Bose-Einstein condensate, it cannot be witnessed here because it's something that can only be witnessed at very low temperatures, not even 0 degrees Celsius, but absolute zero. At around minus 270 degrees Celsius, you can witness this Bose-Einstein condensate, which is very difficult to work with in the Earth. It's very unstable. In the Earth, it is very unstable. So these experiments that they conduct, it is being done in space. Especially in 2014, even before that they have done that. But in order to study that on a much longer basis, at least for a matter of seconds, you will have to go to stable spaces like International Space Station. So in that, in 2014, using rubidium, the BEC was produced. Not for the first time. Earlier in 1990s, 95 itself, BECs were produced using rubidium and sodium. But in 2014, in IAS, rubidium was used to form BEC. We all know that atoms will be there. In any place, any component, there are a lot of atoms. these atoms, they act or they behave like single units. But when you freeze them to such low temperatures, as low as absolute zero, they condense, they come together and act like one single atom. So this is what Bose-Einstein condensated, and we don't know why this is happening or what this is. What is the application? We don't know the application at all. We don't know why this is happening, because the energy states of all these atoms will fall and they condense together to form Bose-Einstein condensate. Yes, Bose-Einstein condensate is what Bose-Einstein condensate is. And in 2001, I told you right, in 1995, individuals, they formed Bose-Einstein condensate from rubidium and sodium. There were 3 individuals, 2 used rubidium, 1 used sodium, and all 3 individuals in 2001, they got Nobel Prize for BEC. And BEC, it will not come under classical physics, but it will come under quantum physics. Quantum physics. So, phenomenon of classical physics, that statement is incorrect. Statements 2 and 3 are correct. '71 Appropriation Bill. Appropriation bill, it covers both the charged and votable expenditures, and vote on account is that 1/6 of the budgetary amount is allocated for a 2 months time. No, in order to the process of bringing in the budget and passing it, it almost takes around 2 months. For that particular year, these 2 months, it cannot go by idle. So in order to avoid the mismatch, the parliament used to pass this vote on account in order to solve the mismatch of the 2 months. It needs money for the 2 months, right? So 1/6 of the budgetary amount is being passed for 2 months validity under the vote on account after the general discussion of the budget. So both statements are correct. Option A, both 1 and 2. Both 1 and 2. 72, parliamentary, which of the following is incorrect with respect to the principle of collective responsibility in India? Collective responsibility in India. Dங்களா? ஆக்சுவலி பி தான் வரும் இல்லைங்களா? 75ல வந்து நம்ம கலெக்டிவ் ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி ஹோல்ட் பண்ணுறோம். நம்ம கலெக்டிவாக ரெஸ்பான்சிபிளாக இருக்கிறனால தான் ஸ்விம் அண்ட் சிங் டுகெதர் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி படிச்சிருப்போம் இல்லைங்களா? நோ ஒன் கேனாட் கவுண்டர் சைன். அன்னைக்கு வந்து ஹிந்து கோட், அன்னைக்கு ஏன் வந்து லைக் அம்பேத்கர் ஹீ லெஃப்ட் தி கான்ஸ்டியூண்ட் அசம்பிளி, அந்த கேபினெட் விட்டு போனான்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா he had apprehensions against the Hindu code bill. So that is why he left the cabinet, because all these cabinet members, cabinet ministers, they swim and sing together. Even if one particular minister he goes out of this way, he opposes the decisions of the cabinet, it is better that he resign or he will be recommended by the prime minister for removal. So that is what it brings the unity absolute terms, not in absolute terms, but yes, in certain, even though there are dissenting opinions, dissenting points, if it is signed, if it is decided by the cabinet, everyone has to abide by it. So that unity it brings. It's not something that is a convention, it is something that is present in our constitution itself. Incorrect கேட்டிருக்காங்க, only one is true. Sorry, only one is incorrect. Only one is incorrect. Only one is incorrect. 73 members of CSTO. Members of CSTO.
Russia comes, Armenia will come, Azerbaijan will come. Kazakhstan is 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3. Uzbekistan was a member. 2012 they came out from the CSTO. The members of CSTO are Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Armenia and Belarus. Armenia, Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Uzbekistan was a member, but in 2012 they came out. 17, Green Finance Working Committee. Green finance working. D. Both statements are correct. So we have come across this term called as sovereign green bonds. So recent times, the need for green projects and green finance has increased, and a lot of organizations, including World Bank and a lot of countries, they resorted to this method called as sovereign green bonds. The bonds that will be issued by the government only for green projects. Let it be solar, let it be renewable energy products, all these things. So in order to raise money for these good green projects, bonds are being released, and this bond is being taken care. The implementation of this is being taken care by a particular organization, by a particular committee called as Green Finance Working Committee, headed by the Chief Economic Advisor, that has to meet at least twice a year. And this sovereign green bonds also a largest, for the first time, and one of the largest issuer of such green bonds is World Bank. World Bank issues all these sovereign green bonds, and bond itself is like a loan agreement, right? It's a debt security, it's a debt-based security, it's a loan agreement. Yes, for green projects. Green Finance Committee. And one thing to be noted is that nuclear project, it might sound like green, but it is not allowed for financing under sovereign green bonds. Nuclear projects and hydropowers more than 25 megawatts. More than hydropower, more than 25 megawatts, and nuclear power has to be avoided. There are also other things, but these two things only. You'll be very confused. Like, this is very good thing, but it can be funded by green bonds. These two things will confuse us, and that is why I pointed out these two things. There are also other things that has to be noted, but by looking at it, we'll find, oh, this cannot be done. This is something that's very polluting. This cannot be funded using green bonds. Yes, question number 75, question number 74, both 1 and 2. Question number 75, again, sovereign green bonds. World Bank issued the first green bond, debt security, and the proceeds go to Consolidated Fund of India. All three statements given there are correct. 1, 2 and 3, option D.